Mahāmati, by the Buddha's power, paid homage to the Buddha and declared,
"The world is neither existent nor non-existent, as are the Buddha's wisdom and compassion, the self of beings or things, and the dwelling of the Buddha in nirvana or not in nirvana. Beholding in this non-arising way is non-attached dwelling."
After introducing himself, Mahāmati requested the Buddha to ask questions. The Buddha accepted. Mahāmati asked the Buddha about states of mind, phenomena, types of designations or terms related to persons, and various teachings. He asks what they are, how they arise or cease, how they are known, who knows of them, and why and how they are taught. The Buddha replies,
"I shall reveal the answer as Buddhas of the past did with truths that transcend words. Any statement about any of the matters on which I was questioned is a statement about the negation of that matter. For example, a statement about birth is a statement about no birth. These terms are nothing more than arbitrary designations, behind which nothing is real. This is how bodhisattvas should study."
Mahāmati asks,
"How do various forms of consciousness arise, persist, and cease?"
The Buddha replies,
They arise, persist and cease as a continuity or as a characteristic. A continuity is underlying and a characteristic is on the surface. This is just like an ocean, its waves. They also have an unfolding, karmic, and intrinsic aspect. The unfolding aspect is produced, the karmic aspect is producing, and the intrinsic aspect is neither produced nor producing. In regard to the forms of consciousness, they are true consciousness, that is, the transformed storehouse consciousness, or the Dharma body, and perceiving consciousness. Perceiving consciousness is the aspect of consciousness that is continually unfolding. It arises from mental habits mixed with imperceptible transformations of the mind, and produces separations and discriminations. Object-producing consciousness, the karmic aspect of consciousness, arises from habit and the grasping of phenomena. If characteristics cease, projections cease. The cessation of continuity is the cessation of the habit energy of beginningless projections from the mind which obscure the storehouse consciousness. The mind's intrinsic aspect, the storehouse consciousness, is neither separate nor not separate from the unfolding habitual aspects of the mind. Just like the particles of dust that make up a lump of clay, they are the same mind, but they can be separated and the storehouse consciousness purified. The idea that the continuity of consciousness would cease with the cessation of the polluted mind would be the nihilism of other parts. Such a suggestion is absurd, as the intrinsic aspect, the storehouse consciousness, is beginningless. On the other extreme are those who claim consciousness arises and ceases dependent not on consciousness itself, but on an external power, such as particles or gods. Moreover, when self-existence is taught in regard to consciousness, it is either the teaching of a heretical school or as a skillful means. However, a higher true self, that of the qualities of all Buddhas, is established through freedom from projections of the mind. I will now teach the cessation of suffering that arises from the projection of illusion. In attempting to explain causation, some argue that whatever arises, ceases. And thus, as a broken jug is no longer being projected in the mind as a jug, mental factors that arise and cease don't continue to arise. Views of causation, based only on the conjunction of sense object, sense faculty, and sense consciousness, are mistaken results of logic based on habit energy. On the other hand, those who see all things as devoid of existence and as projections of the mind, without any origination, duration, or cessation, are bodhisattvas who realize the identity of samsara and nirvana. They see the three realms as illusory and attain the samadhi of the illusory. Being free from projections, they dwell in the perfection of wisdom, attain the Vajra Samadhi, and transcending the consciousnesses, they gradually develop the Buddha's body. Thus, they abandon views related to causation, seeing the three realms as projections and Buddhahood as freedom from projections. One can enter the thoughts of other beings and teach them nothing but mind, and establish them in the stages.
Mahāmati then asked the Buddha to clarify the mind, consciousness, suchness, and the waves of repository consciousness. The Buddha explained,
"For causes result in the functioning of visual consciousness. First, ignorance that the grasp is a perception of one's mind. Second, attachment to the habit energy of erroneous fabrications of the past. Third, the existence of consciousness. And fourth, desire to see a multiplicity of forms. Moreover, consciousness arises together with sensory objects, sensory material of the organs, and the external realms like images in a mirror, which is a static consciousness, or waves in the ocean, which is a dynamic consciousness. Externality stirs the sea of mind. Differences are the result of attachment to what arises from karma. Thus, from ignorance of form, 5 sensory consciousnesses function. Due to differentiation therein, from habit and karma, these give rise to conceptual consciousness. Appearances change due to attachment to projections, but these consciousnesses are not aware of that. Through the changes in awareness, different realms appear and cease. Meditators mistakenly may think consciousness ceases in samadhi, but it does not if they haven't destroyed the subtle seeds of habit energy, which happens after they no longer grasp changes in external realms. Only Buddhas and advanced Bodhisattvas can understand the full subtlety of the storehouse consciousness and the other aspects of the path. Regardless of their practice, practitioners who see how projections flow from their minds will have their foreheads anointed by the Buddhas and be surrounded by the Bodhisattvas. External phenomena and the mind, like waves and the ocean, are neither separate nor not separate. Thus, the 7 consciousnesses arise with the mind of the storehouse consciousness. Even the mind of the storehouse consciousness, thought consciousness, and mind consciousness are ultimately not different. The storehouse consciousness gathers karma, the thought consciousness considers what's gathered, and the mind consciousness is conscious of and projects the 5 apparent worlds of the senses.
Mahāmati asked what differentiation means. The Buddha explains that different things, such as blue and red, are not found in other waves, but karma and habits are not real, they are really just one, that is, the mind. Differentiation is how karma and habits appear. Mahāmati then asked why the Buddha doesn't teach the same truth to all beings. He replied,
There would then be no truth in beings' minds, which focus on the waves, not on the ocean. Their consciousnesses keep going, except in meditation. As paintings are not reality, they are to please beings. The truth is not in words, I make distinctions for beginners, but for bodhisattvas, I teach a truth for them to realize themselves, a realm of inner realization, without projection. Bodhisattvas who wish to understand the projection of their own minds should avoid social interaction and cultivate mindfulness during the 3 periods of the night, avoiding other teachings and becoming versed in the characteristics of their own projections. Cultivation of Buddha knowledge has 3 aspects. First, freedom from projections, the erroneous appearances that come from practices of sravakas and pratyekabuddhas. Second, the power of the vows made by all Buddhas, which comes from past Buddhas. And third, the personal realization of the ultimate knowledge of Buddhas, which comes from obtaining the samadhi of the illusory with the illusory projection body. Achieving these, one is on the 8th Bodhisattva stage.
Mahāmati then asked,
Please explain how to understand Buddha knowledge and the characteristics of the imagined reality into which bodhisattvas enter so we can understand the absence of self and dharmas, so we can rid projections and see the Buddha realms, and so we can let go of the 5 dharmas and achieve the Buddha body.
The Buddha explained.
Some people get attached to the view that things don't exist because the causes aren't present, like a rabbit's horns, whereas others get attached to the view that if there is an underlying entity behind something, it must exist, like ox horns. Both are false, appearance and non-appearance are projections of the mind. All things transcend existence and non-existence, thus, don't imagine things as existing or not. The denial of existence, like denying rabbit horns, is not due to the lack of discrimination between existence and non-existence, but because people do not see that existence and non-existence are neither separate nor not separate, that is, they are non-dual. Likewise, while space and form are conceptualized as separate, they are, in fact, the same, both are projections. Anything you examine can be analyzed down to the finest particle. Can one still say an ox horn exists after doing that? Thus, reflect on perceptions of your own minds, and teach other bodhisattvas about them too. Understand that ultimately all arises from the 8th consciousness, the storehouse consciousness. This being so, know that all dualities are false. Although this does not please the deluded, this is the teaching of self-realization.
Mahāmati asked if the stream of perceptions in beings' minds is purified gradually or instantly. The Buddha replied,
It is both. In terms of purifying gradually and not instantly, one purifies like a fruit ripening, a pot made by a potter, the earth that gives rise to life, an artistic skill. Thus, the Buddhas purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds gradually. In terms of purifying instantly and not gradually, one purifies like a mirror's reflection, the sun and moon's illumination, consciousness distinguishing of perceptions, or the resultant Buddha manifested by the Buddha as Dharma nature. In this way, the Buddhas reveal the wisdom of the formless and undifferentiated and lead beings to Akanishta heaven instantly. Regarding the aspects of Buddhas, there are three. First, the resultant Dharma nature Buddha, who teaches that the characteristics of all things are due to habit energy and attachment to illusions that cannot really be grasped. He teaches that imagined realities arise from attachment to a dependent reality, attachment to false projections that arise based on the habit energy of attachment to such projections. The Dharma nature Buddha establishes the realm transcending self-existent appearances of mind, upon which personal realization of Buddha knowledge depends. This aspect of the Buddha is free from objective support established by personal realization, and his state is achieved by putting an end to views, perceptions of the mind. Finally, the created transformation Buddha teaches the perfections, detachment, liberation from projections, and the transcendence of all views.
The Buddha further explains.
There are two characteristic differences of the sravaka path. Firstly, the attainment of personal realization of awakened knowledge. While shravakas attain knowledge of the Four Noble Truths and the bliss of meditation and cessation, they are not yet free of habit energy or imperceptible transformation births and deaths. Bodhisattvas avoid the bliss of meditation and cessation. They avoid these due to compassion and their vows. Secondly, they have attachment to the existence of an imagined reality. They believe that distinctions arise without a creator, but that they have a self-existence that arises from their projection. Bodhisattvas avoid views of a self both of persons and of phenomena.
Mahāmati then asks if the eternal and inconceivable each other schools consider ultimate truth or awakened knowledge is a cause or creator. The Buddha answers.
The cause or creator of other schools cannot be eternal and inconceivable because the eternal and inconceivable cannot be caused. If it were caused by itself, it would be the product of a creator, and thus would not be the eternal and inconceivable. The eternal and inconceivable of awakened knowledge is produced by that which transcends existence and non-existence, thus, it is the non-created and eternal, like space, nirvana, or cessation. Without this element, the eternal and inconceivable of other schools needs a cause, but it cannot be its own cause, and all which is caused is impermanent. With no cause, it is like a rabbit's horns and not worth talking about. As for shravakas, they seek nirvana out of fear of samsara, unaware that both are non-existent projections. They see nirvana as cessation of all sensory realms and not the transformation of the storehouse consciousness through awakened knowledge. The ignorant see the three vehicles and are attached to perceptions of a realm outside the mind, perpetuating samsara. In truth, nothing arises, existence and non-existence are projections of the mind. Existence characterizing body, possessions, and the world is the interplay of the grasping and grasped of storehouse consciousness. Free from dualistic views of arising, abiding, and ceasing, the wise don't project.
The Buddha continues.
There are 5 lineages of realization. First, the sravaka lineage. This is taught through expedient teachings by a manifestation Buddha. It can allow one to attain the equivalent of the 5th and 6th Bodhisattva stages. It can allow one to escape karmic deaths, but not imperceptible transformation deaths. Those with views of a surviving self or creator cannot be liberated on this path. Second, the Pratyeka Buddha lineage. This is the realization of dependent origination in a yet unperfected state, also termed a Nishpanna Nirmita Buddha. Third, the Tathagata lineage. A Buddha of Dharma nature teaches this. There are 4 lineages within this lineage and a 5th aspect which those on this lineage will also come to learn. The first is the sub-lineage of concern with the reality of phenomena, be they imagined, dependent, or perfected. The second is the sub-lineage concerned with the non-reality of phenomena, including form, life, and reality. The third is the sub-lineage concerned with the attainment of personal realization of awakened knowledge. The fourth is the sub-lineage concerned with the splendors of external Buddha lands. The 5th is the inconceivable sub-lineage, which is the transformed storehouse consciousness. The 4th lineage of realization after the Tathagata lineage is the indeterminate lineage which teaches the 3 prior ones, and both holds them to be true and doubts them at the same time. One enters according to one teaching and succeeds according to another. For example, if one enters the sravaka lineage and enjoys the bliss of samadhi but has personal realization of the storehouse consciousness, then they will attain Buddhahood. The fifth lineage is that of those who don't believe in the prior four lineages. These are also known as echantikas. As for the four paths on the sravaka level, such as stream enter up to arhatship, these are only taught for those who are not ready to go beyond projections. The various vehicles no longer exist beyond projections. Where there is mind only, there are not even the formless dhyanas realized by those on such levels. As for those who do not believe in the Buddha's lineages, the echantikas, there are two kinds. First, those who forsake good roots by slandering the Dharma and so are not liberated. While they forsook their good roots, at some point, their good roots reappear because the Tathagatas don't forsake any being. Secondly, there are bodhisattvas who vow not to enter nirvana because they realize that everything is already in nirvana.
The Buddha continues.
Bodhisattvas should be well acquainted with the three modes of reality, or three own beings, into which fit the five kinds of phenomena. First, the imagined mode, wherein objects and forms appear from dependent reality. Attachment to those appearances that appear consequently arise, along with their characteristics. In this category fit the phenomena of name and appearance. Second, the dependent mode, which is the ground, the storehouse consciousness, and the objective support, the first to seventh consciousness, for appearances. In this category fit projection phenomena. Third, the perfected mode, which is free from characteristics, appearances, and projection. Therein, the personal realization of Buddha knowledge occurs. This is the heart of Buddha nature. In this category fit true knowledge and suchness phenomena.